Hey friends, welcome to Mark's Roamin, a van life podcast. I'm Mark, a Canadian, and I live in a van with less than 100 square feet of living space. Since 2024, I've been exploring a nomadic life, traveling out of my hatchback. In 2026, I made the leap to full-time with a 2019 RAM ProMaster 3500 that I've been converting myself. Come along with me as I drive, hike, and paddleboard across North America. On today's episode, I'll be talking about buying a van. Which one did I choose and why? New or used? High roof or low roof? Front wheel, all wheel, or four-wheel drive? I'll explain why I picked my ProMaster 3500 and give my honest review of it now that I'm 3 months and 16,000 kilometers or 10,000 miles into my van life journey. Today, I'm recording this back at my home base in Kitchener, Ontario, about an hour from Toronto. Welcome to the show. Now that I'm back in Southern Ontario for a little while, there will be a little bit less content about some of my travels, but I will be sharing a bit more about what I'm doing this summer, which is continuing my build process, picking up from where I left off last year. And so that's hopefully what I'm going to do in the next episode or in a couple episodes soon. Share about how I've been building the van out and why I've been making the choices I've made with the build. As well as I want to cover a few of the other things, specifically around where do I camp for free, but also why did I choose not to get another apartment again for the summer. This has been a really interesting thing as I've come back to Southern Ontario. People are asking, are you still living in the van? And I've been saying, yes, I am. The only difference is I don't have epic hikes to go on up mountains or along the ocean. But there seems to be a bit of surprise that I haven't moved back into an apartment. Even though my plan to be here is actually fairly short term, certainly much less than a 1-year lease. So yeah, I want to kind of dig into maybe why I think people are surprised about that or consider that to be strange or unusual. I've also been surprised at who has been surprised at that. So yeah, I'd love to dig into that. Anyway, the last couple of weeks, what's been going on? I left Maine 2 weeks ago with my friend Jolene that I interviewed for the last episode. I was just outside of Acadia National Park. My whole drive back from Nova Scotia and Cape Breton, there's been a lot of social connections, which has been really neat after being in the U.S. for so long and not really knowing a lot of people down there. I had a whole lot of social connections on my way back to Southern Ontario. I did some hiking in Vermont, not too far outside of Burlington. I had a friend who recommended a hike called the Hellbrook Trail, going up Mount Mansfield, and it's appropriately named. So the summit of this mountain is 4,300 feet, just above the tree line. From where I parked at the trailhead in Vermont, it was about a 2,800 foot climb, almost just straight up. There were sections where there were steel bars drilled into the rock to give you some handholds to get you up sections. There were a few other sections. It's just a bit of a scramble, and it had rained the day before, so it is quite a potentially treacherous climb. Definitely more challenging than I was expecting. I was not given a full and accurate view by my friend about what kind of trail it was. But it was really good. It was one of those trails that I don't know if I would have picked it if I had known how difficult it was. And I think I would have started much earlier in the day. But unfortunately, it was super cloudy. So by the time I got up above the tree line, I was just enveloped in cloud. I was really glad to have brought my rain gear. But yeah, it was a very challenging hike, and I haven't done anything quite like that with that level of verticality to it. yeah, so it was quite a challenge, and I was quite proud of myself for making it all the way up. I thought more than once, why did I do this? Should I turn back? But I just kept going, and I'm really glad I did. I got to the top. I'd like to say it was beautiful, but visibility was like 15 feet with the clouds. So the trail down, I took a different one. That one was called Profanity Trail. Which was a lot of just sitting on my butt and lowering myself down with my arms through some pretty treacherous sections. That's not where I used most of my profanity. Most of my profanity was on the way up. And then I took the long trail down, which was a little bit easier, certainly easier on the knees on the way down, which is generally how I prefer to do my hikes. I like the verticality to be on the way up. So that way I'm not destroying my knees on the way back down. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. A whole bunch of good hiking around there. That's Mount Mansfield. I also went to the Ben & Jerry's ice cream factory tour before I left that area, and I think it was $7 to tour the factory, and it was very much worth it. It was probably, other than feeding tarpors in the Florida Keys, which I think was also $7. This is probably the best $7 I've spent on my travels. It was very, very good. And I just like the quirky culture of Ben & Jerry's. One of its founders, he's also a little bit of a hero of mine. He's been arrested a number of times for peaceful non-compliance, protesting like war and violence. And yeah, I just really admire that, especially in somebody who has a lot to lose as the owner of a very large company. And so yeah, I have a lot of respect for the founder, one of the founders, but also like the company culture kind of envelops that. They talk about this is not sponsored. I just think it's really cool when companies do this. So they're very environmentally conscious, but also intentional about pursuing justice. I think the phrase in their corporate sort of value statement is justice in all its flavors. So yeah, again, I'm not getting any money from Ben & Jerry's. I really like it when companies that don't need to put these kinds of values as front and forward as part of their company culture. And if there is an opportunity for me to support companies that are maybe a little bit more socially and morally conscious, I love to do that. And so overall, it was a great experience. A lot of humor in the tour. If you go there on kind of at the end, they give you a taste testing the sample, whatever they're making that day, and they kind of give you the reveal of like, here's the flavor of the day that we're giving you. And I think it was broccoli and cheese, and nobody was particularly excited about that. And then surprise, that's just a joke. And I flip it around. Here's the actual flavor we're giving you. But if you go there on April 1st, April Fool's Day, that will be the flavor that they will make for you. So if I would love to go back and just be in the room with that group of people when they actually bring out like broccoli and cheese ice cream, and I'd give it a shot. I'd just love to see the response from people. It'd be neat. Anyway, yeah, so then I went back up to Ottawa for some time with some family, and then got back down here to Kitchener for the summer, working part-time and relief shifts with my old job, but then I'll also be doing part 2 of the van build, the priority here being the water system, shower, and upper cabinets. And then if I can get to some finishing touches like trim around the windows, doors, that kind of thing, I'd love to be able to do that. We'll see how it goes for timing. But the first thing actually has been reattaching the ceiling, which I knew I would have to do a little bit of work on. The more you take your vehicle off-road, it's like putting your house through an earthquake, somebody told me. And that's very much what was happening. A number of my tongue and groove boards, I could see the nails coming loose, the brad nails. And then finally last week, while I was at work, I came back out in the evening and half my ceiling had fallen out of the out of the ceiling. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of days, is putting those back up with longer brad nails, securing it better. But also once the upper cabinets and the shower go in, that will help to keep everything in place. The thing with tongue and groove is once one goes, they kind of all go. That's kind of what happened. So that's what we're working on. Anyway, on to the topic for today's episode, which was buying a van. I'm coming up on almost a year now of having the van. So why did I choose this van? Why did I pick a van at all? Well, the first thing was I wanted to do some research just to know what kind of vehicle I wanted, or what kind of vehicle I needed, what kind of capabilities did it need to have, what kind of storage did I want, or like cubic feet did I want, to be able to build out what I was hoping to have. So here's what my requirements were. I knew I wanted to do high roof. So a lot of the research for me came from watching YouTube videos, but also the amount of time I spent traveling in my car. And one of the things I realized is that I don't think I could do like I don't think I could do like a low roof Ford Econoline, kind of your traditional van life vehicle. Where most of the time you'd have to either be bent over or going around on your knees. That was not something that I was particularly interested in. I knew I wanted to be able to stand up, in part because I knew I wanted to do van life permanently, not just as a weekend thing. And so high roof became essential for that. I knew I wanted something longer because I wanted to have room to put a small shower in. I knew I wanted to have a queen size bed, particularly just kind of thinking down the road. I don't need a queen size bed right now, but I was thinking about a future, a potential travel partner, either of the human or canine variety. But I also knew as well that two-wheel drive would be sufficient. There are options for all-wheel and four-wheel drive, but given how many places I was able to get to in my hatchback, like in my hatchback, I got to everywhere I wanted to be able to get to. And so that made me realize, okay, four-wheel drive is not essential to be able to get to where I want to go necessarily. So two-wheel would be sufficient, provided that I carry some self-recovery gear. So for some people, that's the full-on like big steel bumper with a winch on the front. If I had the money, yeah, I'd probably do that. I do think often when I'm driving at night, I would feel much better with a bull bar on the front in case of a deer or something like that doesn't wreck the vehicle. But that also gives you room to mount additional lighting or a winch. But for me, recovery gear has just been a set of traction boards and a shovel, and that's been sufficient. So now that I knew what I wanted, high roof, longer vehicle, two-wheel drive would be fine. It was time to start looking for a vehicle. So the next question was going to be new, certified used, or as is. So as is could be from auction, or it could be a private sale, possibly of an already converted vehicle. So in terms of auctions, there was a few sites that I was keeping an eye on for quite a while. Ritchie Bros is kind of the big North American one. So they do vans and commercial vehicles and trucks all across North America, Canada, US, Mexico, I believe. So I was watching a bunch of those. The the frustrating thing about auctions is that you see vehicles and you're like, oh, that's the one that I want. And then you put your bid in and it stays low. And then the last hour of like the week-long bidding process, it goes from like $3,000 to $23,000. And you're like, I was hoping to get that at quite a steal. But that's just how it goes. Ritchie Brothers, Missioner Allen Auctions, I kept an eye on. That one's mostly based out of Alberta, some stuff from Saskatchewan as well. And in Ontario, Brian's Auction is kind of the big one. They've got a place in just outside of Guelph and Cambridge, and then they've also got another site up Ottawa ways, and then they do vehicle auctions. I think it's about once a month or something like that. So you tend to get a lot of municipal vehicles that go through that auction, or power company vehicles, former fire trucks, like pickup trucks, that kind of stuff, can go through there. The challenge with auctions is that there's no warranties and nothing is safetied. So how do you pick it up? Well, if it runs, they give you like a temporary 1-week license or permit for the vehicle or license plate. So that gives you a week to get it to a mechanic or drive it to where it needs to go, and get your own safety and repairs done. So there's a lot of unpredictability there of like what's, you can only visually inspect so much, and I'm not particularly knowledgeable about vehicle engines and stuff that's underneath. So I don't really know what I'm looking for. So I didn't feel super comfortable with that. The other thing too is that I would have to budget in possibly a flight and hotel rental vehicle into the costs, as well as the return journey in terms of gas and any unexpected issues that may come up driving a vehicle back. So that's the same too with, like, I kept an eye on a couple of mostly Facebook Marketplace and Facebook groups for a used, already converted vehicle. And I was willing to fly basically anywhere in North or South America for the right vehicle. There was one I'd nearly bought just over a year ago in Costa Rica, maybe a year and a half ago. There's one that had come up that I really liked, but the timing didn't work out. I did the math on it, and I'd have to drive, I think it was 15 hours a day for, I think, 6 days to drive it back from Costa Rica to southern Ontario. And then I did the math on the gasoline costs, and the main reason, like, I think I could have figured it out for work, but the main reason I chose not to do that is because I didn't want to spend $2,000 on gas and drive all of that distance and not be able to actually see where I was driving through. So the timing just wasn't right. I would have preferred just to fly and then just start my van life journey from there. But yeah, it didn't quite line up. It just wasn't in a place both for liquidity and work in order to like spend that money and that time then. So then I started looking at a dealership, getting something new, because there's one of the possibilities there of, like, if I was going to convert the vehicle and turn it around in 2 years, it's still, maybe put 50,000 kilometers on it or 30,000 miles. You would still be under warranty for a lot of things. So we would retain some resale value there. But when I went to the dealership, they said it was going to be at least a 1-year wait for RAM ProMaster 3500 extended. They had 2500s on the lot, but they didn't have the full size, like the large one. And that was going to be about a year wait. And then also brand new in Canadian prices, that was going to be about $75,000 to $80,000, kind of depending on the kit for it. And so that really kind of just left me with looking for certified used vehicles. So this is mostly searching Auto Trader and local used commercial truck dealerships, either in my town or next town over, and then eventually some stuff in Toronto, where there was the most selection. And so after I was probably keeping an eye on vehicles for probably close to a year by the time that I actually made a purchase. So I went with a 2019 RAM ProMaster 3500 Extended with 96,000 kilometers on it, which is just under 60,000 miles. And then I got it from a used commercial truck sales dealership in Toronto. There were a number of things that that they were willing to include or I don't know if repair is the right word, just some other things that they would include as part of the sale. That's part of why I picked that one. So why a ProMaster? There's kind of three main vans that most van lifers or full-timers will kind of go for. The high roof ones are the RAM ProMaster, which is what I have, the Ford Transit, and then the Mercedes Sprinter. So these are the three. You also see a lot of delivery companies use these three vehicles. And then a lot of other van lifers will do, like there's a lot of Ford Econolines, Chevy Expresses, and GMC Savannahs. Those are the low roof ones, but you'll often see sometimes that there's a conversion where there is an additional extended roof that's been added on aftermarket. So why the ProMaster? Well, this one was the widest body of the three main vans. So it's just about six feet wide, which allowed me to put in what's called an RV queen or short queen, right into like from side to side, as opposed to like your feet coming down towards the driver's seat. So I can sleep sideways as opposed to front to back. It also has the least curved walls. It's a very boxy vehicle. So that does make building much easier. It's not quite a box, but it all kind of sort of the top half has one angle and the bottom half has a different angle, and so that does make things much easier. The Sprinter is the one that's the most curved. You see particularly with Sprinters is people install flares on the side, so that gives them a little bit of extra room. And that was not something that I wanted to do. As well, front-wheel drive, the ProMaster's front-wheel drive, the Ford Transit is usually rear-wheel drive, although sometimes they have an all-wheel drive version. Sometimes there's also a dually as well. And then the Sprinter is only rear-wheel or 4x4. I think they may have changed that in the most recent Sprinters, switching to an all-wheel drive version. But especially people that are like, if they're doing a shorter vehicle for sort of weekend warrior stuff, really in the backcountry and wanting that four-wheel drive, that's the vehicle that they go for. But the nice thing about front-wheel drive is that it makes drilling through the floor for drains or adding an undermounted gray water tank much easier, because you don't have a drive shaft to work around. So there's just less stuff in the bottom of the vehicle because all of the drivetrain stuff is at the front. It's not running down towards the back axle. So I don't have to worry about that for drilling through, running plumbing lines. I'll be running some coolant lines for my water heater from the engine. There's less stuff that I have to worry about underneath the vehicle for running lines like that. So that was a benefit. And then the other reason too that I really didn't want to go with a Sprinter is because I knew I would be buying used. A brand new Sprinter is kind of like this is the luxury version for Vanlife builds. With that 4x4 option. It's also the highest in terms of clearance. So that's a little nicer off-road. and it's it's Mercedes, so you can buy like the high end driver cab package with the leather seats and everything. So but the challenge with that is if you're buying used, Sprinters can only be generally serviced at a dealership. And so my concern there with buying used is when a breakdown happens, not if, because it's a vehicle, it's a used vehicle. When it happens, I could potentially be much, much, much further away from a dealership in terms of a tow. And so that could mean, instead of a $400 tow truck drive to get out, it might have been like a $2,000 tow truck ride to get my vehicle out. So that was, and then you're paying dealership rates for repairs, ordinary maintenance, that kind of stuff. And that was just not something that I wanted to be thinking about, worried about, or have to plan for in my budget. Next question, why not a smaller vehicle? This is like, my vehicle is 6 feet wide. It's 21 feet bumper to bumper. My clearance is about 8.5 feet. So, like, it's big. It's not RV big. It's not C-class camper big. But in terms of vans, it's one of the biggest, aside from like the Sprinter 170. That one's much longer. But why not something much smaller? And again, the reason for that was just I knew I wanted to do full-time van life, and that would be for about 2 years, and that this was not just going to be a weekend thing. If it was a weekend thing, I probably would have bought like a Ford Transit Connect or a ProMaster City, which is sort of the smaller version, and then done a very different kind of conversion on that. So obviously not really, you could do an outdoor shower, but it would be much smaller. I would have kept my old sort of chest style 12-volt fridge that I used to have in my hatchback. I would have done like a much skinnier bed that kind of like pulls out. So you can look up Transit Connect van conversions, and they're all often done kind of similarly. It would have been a much simpler build, but again, I knew that was not what I wanted for full-time van life for a couple of years. So I went with the longest one, again for that shower and for the bed. And then the extended 3500 also gave me just enough roof room for everything that I wanted to put up there, which was a Max Air extraction fan on the front, a 12-volt air conditioner on the back. I don't use that often. Usually I use it plugged in, but I knew I wanted to have it as an option, especially for potentially having a dog in the vehicle at some point. And then it also gave me room to fit 2 320-watt solar panels. So I got 640 watts of solar up on the roof. I knew that would probably get close to the max. And then I've also got room, like the air conditioner unit is not too high in terms of like the height on it. And so I'm also planning on building a little bit of a roof deck over top of that. I don't think I'll get to that this year. We'll see. So that gives me room to put everything up there that I want. In terms of the vehicle, like this one specifically, there's nothing too special about this one. Several owners. The last one was used by a charity or mission of some kind. Seemed like it was for supply transportation. There's some old shelves that have been kind of screwed into the walls. The dealer ripped all of those out for me. It just meant that there was a whole bunch of screw holes that I had to clean up before and just repair in terms of like rust prevention before I could get started on the build. Nothing fancy up in the cab, just the standard seats. I had to get a aftermarket cruise control stock installed. But there were part of why I picked this one of this model. There were a couple of reasons for that. The price was decent, although like all vans feel overpriced these days. They're all expensive. But this one had the rear door OEM, so original windows, like factory windows, and no other factory windows, and no other aftermarket windows installed. And nothing else was done on the roof either. There wasn't a reefer unit. It wasn't spray foamed on the inside. Part of the reason I didn't want to go, or why I was pretty picky about anything that was a conversion or a half converted, once wires are buried in the walls, it becomes very hard to get at them to be able to inspect them or to see what gauge was used. Especially running higher power appliances from time to time through an inverter. I really wanted to make sure that the gauge on the wires was beyond the recommended size for the amount of current I would want to put through it. Because that's where your real fire risk is if the wires are too small and you're running DC power through it, they can get really hot really fast if they're not big enough. And if it was somebody else had done it, then if it wasn't a professional company, then I really would have no ability to know what was done where. So that's also kind of factored into my build process. I'll talk about that more maybe the next episode about wire sizing and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it basically it had on the shell the things that I wanted, and it didn't have the things that I didn't wanted. So that was good. The dealer would safety and certify it as part of the sale, and make a number of changes that I'd requested, including that aftermarket cruise control stock. And then it also included a 5,000 kilometer warranty on the drivetrain and the engine, and 50% coverage for other mechanical or electrical issues. Foreshadowing. That was useful. Kind of. The cons. No Apple CarPlay. I'd installed that in my hatchback, and it made such a difference for road trips in terms of, just, voice prompting through text messages and replies, without having to touch my phone, and having the map running and like music player running, kind of all on the same screen, while it muted notifications that I didn't want in driving mode. It worked really well. I don't have that anymore. Just my phone mounted on the vent. So maybe at some point I'll upgrade that. We'll see. One of the other cons, ProMasters have notoriously bad headlamps. Both the low and the high beam headlights are really underpowered. And so I haven't replaced those yet, but that is in the... I really noticed that the last couple of months traveling. Like the low beams are dangerously low when there aren't street lamps and when you're not on a highway. Like it's dangerously dim. And so that's going to be a higher priority fix for me. The other thing, too, was a bit of a con. The dealership is an hour and a half away from my house. So if anything went wrong, that's a long way to bring the vehicle back for repairs under warranty. Because it's not a dealership, so there aren't affiliated dealerships in a network. So it would mean that I'd have to drive it or tow it all the way back. Again, some foreshadowing. Anyway, so pickup date came. It was June 24th, 2025. 2 weeks actually from the day that this is going out. And I was excited. I was nervous. It was also a long day because I knew I had to get in on public transit to be able to drive it back out, because I didn't have somebody to drive into Toronto and drop me off. So it was a long day of just buses to get in. But I was mostly excited, nervous, eager to get started, but also like a little bit of a slight worry that I was making a huge mistake. Because I'd gone to the bank, I'd financed the vehicle, got a good, rate on the loan. I probably could have paid for the vehicle outright cash, But that would mean that I had basically no cash for the conversion and for traveling and for any unforeseen um, things that might come up. More foreshadowing. um, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna finance the vehicle. I'll still put a big down payment on it and finance the rest. I got a really good rate, so and that would just leave me more flexibility and room financially to deal with anything that may come up. Um, but yeah, almost like just mostly really excited to finally begin the build process, something that I had been thinking about and planning for about a year and a half at that point. I was just dreaming about having a vehicle and doing a build and getting ready to get on the road and to do some traveling, some exploring, and to yeah, just see where the road takes me long term, because I'm open to moving somewhere else, falling in love with a place, um, and just choosing to remain there. Uh, and then the drive back was actually a little nerve wracking because it was a bit of a windy day, and so I have this large empty vehicle with very little weight in it, and it's essentially just a huge white sail on the highway. So that was quite nerve-wracking, driving this vehicle back with the wind shear on the vehicle, kind of pushing it around the lane quite a bit. But yeah, got it back and just super elated and excited to, that this was finally happening. Um, yeah, so overall, that part of the process seemed to have gone really well. Um, I'll share more about the build in the next episode, but this is why you need to have money put aside for emergencies, especially with a used vehicle. This one, as we kind of alluded to in the Jolene episode, if you've seen my Instagram, then you've kind of gotten bits of this story. Basically, all of the electronics in the vehicle failed. At first, I was worried that I did something that fried everything. I'm convinced at this point that it wasn't me. But it seems like ProMasters do have this problem of water ingress into the engine bay. I've done a little bit of work to try and stop that. I've got some more to do. But basically, the PCM, which is the computer for the engine and for the transmission, it failed. That was replaced. I don't know why it's such an expensive computer part, because it's such a small computer part. It's not like it's got an NVIDIA chipset in it. Shouldn't cost that much, but that had to be replaced. And then we still had problems with 12-volt power coming down the 5-volt lines, which shouldn't have happened. And so the computer controller for all of the dashboard stuff was replaced. And then after that, the power distribution unit was replaced. There was something that was burnt out in there. And then there was still a short somewhere in the wiring harness in the engine. There was a short somewhere, and either they go wire by wire at a dealership, or sorry, not a dealership, at like a mechanic's rate to check everything, or they just ran a bunch of extra lines. So that's what they ended up doing, is they ran a whole bunch of extra lines through the power distribution node for the 5-volt stuff, just to kind of bypass the wiring harness. All of that came out to about an extra $4,000 of work. And it had to be towed because it wouldn't start. Once there's an electrical issue, the vehicle just won't start. It had to be towed 3 times. My mechanic paid for one, but I had to pay for the other 2 because I towed it to a dealership first. Did not have a great experience there. So I towed it to my mechanic the second time. And then when it failed after pickup on the third time, they paid for that one. But the dealership I had bought it from, he ended up covering, there was a bunch of stuff he wouldn't cover. But he did go 50% on a bunch of the other stuff. So the first $3,000 of things, he would cover. And because it wasn't the engine mechanically itself, it was all electronic stuff, it was only 50% of that was covered. So I got another $1,500 back. But yeah, that $2,500 plus the almost 3 months that it sat in a garage was very frustrating, stressful. I felt very overwhelmed. I had no idea how much it would cost by the time it was all done. I didn't know how long it was going to take. And I still have this this anxious trauma piece when I'm driving. The the ProMaster has the most loud, obnoxious, low gas noise. Like, the light comes on and then it dings and it's very loud and obnoxious. Every time it does, I jump and I have this, oh crap, what is wrong now feeling that just floods my body. So some trauma there or something, but I just have this oh no, what's failed again feeling that comes over me. And it is what it is. That's part of it. Like, every person I've watched on YouTube that's done van life for a while, they've talked about, it's not a question of when things break down or if things break down. It's a question of when. And for me, it just happened to be at the beginning. But it wasn't forever. It wasn't forever. It felt like forever. It wasn't forever. And we eventually did get onto the road. And I'm super grateful for that, for the chance to have been able to do 3 months of straight full-time van life travel. And I'm really looking forward to getting back on the road this fall, and doing another much longer journey, which I'll talk about a bit more in a future episode, I think. So anyway, if you are thinking about buying a vehicle, if you're thinking about starting van life, just here's a couple of thoughts that I have in terms of advice. Test drive a couple of vans, see what you like. And not just in terms of the size of the vehicle, walking around in it does kind of really make things feel real, but also the front, the cab. Is it something that you enjoy driving? Are you too tall for the vehicle? Is there is visibility, or too short? Is visibility an issue? Are you just really uncomfortable in the seats that are in the vehicle? Again, you can test drive or even maybe rent a vehicle that's the same one, and then drive it around for a couple of days, see if you still like it. Give some thought as well to how much you plan on using it. I've kind of been aiming for full season, all out, full-time vehicle. That's a lot of money to invest. So I would encourage you, if you think about how much you actually think you're going to use this. Don't spend your entire maximum budget on a vehicle and a build that you'll only use for less than 4 weeks in a year. It's not worth it. And a vehicle is not it's not a growing investment. You're not going to get your money's worth back. It's going to depreciate in value. So don't spend your maximum, don't exert yourself to the full ends of your financial capacity on a vehicle that you're only going to use for a couple of weeks a year. As well, if what you are looking for in life right now is a break and to experience a new place, that's why a lot of us, it seems, get into van life. The end of a relationship or job or career, or kids have left the nest, different stage of life. If you just need a break, maybe not spending 70 grand, 80, 90, 100, 150, $200,000. Maybe that's not the wisest choice. If you just need to go someplace new, experience something new, maybe try something smaller, do a truck or an SUV setup, or convert your van if you already have like a minivan. Or consider going on a longer travel, a service trip abroad maybe, or like hiking a Camino overseas for a couple of weeks. A full van and build is a huge investment, not only of money, but also of time if you're doing it yourself. It's a lot of work. It's more work than you think it's going to be, and it's going to cost more money than you are budgeting for. So while I don't regret my choice for a large vehicle, for high roof vehicle, and for the level of build that I've been doing, there are moments and days where I wonder if I could have done something else at a much smaller investment that I would have enjoyed just as equally. So you only have the freedom to choose when you haven't spent the money yet. As soon as you spend the money, you no longer have that freedom to choose. So consider it well if this is something that you're thinking about. So to wrap up our time, I just want to say thank you for listening to the Mark's Roamin podcast. If you'd like to follow along with the journey, I am on YouTube and on Instagram, both at Mark's Roamin, no G on the end. And then if you are looking for a few more details about my travels, including map pins of the places that I would recommend, you can check out my website, www.marksroamin.com. If you'd like to support this podcast and my travels, the best thing you can do is to leave a 5-star review wherever you've listened to this podcast and to share it with a friend. As well, I'm looking to get my YouTube subscriber count up to 1,000, which is when you can begin to monetize it. Could really use a sub if you are willing to do that on YouTube. The music you're hearing is by Jayam, and it's licensed through MusicBed. If you are looking to license music for a creative project, there's a link in the show notes. Get a 14-day free trial. And finally, in big or small ways, I hope you'll join me in exploring our beautiful world. And because I'm a nerd at heart, I leave you with the words of Professor Tolkien. May the wind under your wings bear you where the sun sails and the moon walks.